House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan and House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Jason Smith sending subpoenas to 4 FBI and IRS officials believed to be involved with the Hunter Biden tax probe. The committees say the officials were either present or they have direct knowledge of an October 2022 meeting in which Delaware U.S. Attorney, now special counsel in the case, David Weiss, allegedly said he was, quote, not the deciding person where the charges against Hunter were filed, and that U.S. attorneys appointed by President Biden would not let him bring the charges outside of the state. New bombshell reports also reveal that Weiss did work closely with the late Beau Biden when he served as Delaware Attorney General. The New York Post editorial board out with this op-ed titled, quote, media hides it, but Bidens are in big trouble as Americans get wise to nothing burger, Amber. And again, we kept hearing over and over, this is a nothing burger from the mainstream media. Now more and more people are waking up to this story.
Exactly. The House Oversight Committee keeps pulling on these various threads that start to paint this very clear picture of this attempt by the Biden family to use their name to get money from foreign companies. And bringing in these IRS whistleblowers is a really important step in this investigation because David Weiss has spun a different story publicly about the power that he had to prosecute. He has said publicly that he was told by the DOJ that he could bring charges wherever he wanted. All he had to do was ask for them. But then the DOJ goes ahead and makes him a special counsel. Well, why does he need to be a special counsel if he already has that permission?
And also, too, Lili, he worked for then President Barack Obama and then Vice President Joe Biden, working with Beau Biden. So there's just a lot of conflict of interest here. And look, those tax charges alone, that sweetheart deal that he got, that the judge, tossed out and said, come back to me with something serious. Most Americans that would be charged with those types of, whether it was the tax or the gun charge, would never have gotten the deal. It's just a special treatment type of scenario here that we're looking at.
Right, and that has become so visible for the American people to be concerned about, is there a two-tier system here of justice? And in fact, the data proves that, like, 79% of Americans say that they feel there is a two-tier type of system of justice. That is greatly concerning. I'm from Latin America, where sadly you assume that that's the default and that's normal. We just saw what's happened in the Ecuadorian elections. The presidential candidate got shot. It is crazy. This is the kind of stuff that you go at any means to win. And in this case, it is concerning for us to see that the American people do feel that way. So there's an opportunity now with so many whistleblowers and the evidence on the table to probably demonstrate the opposite, because we must, to really protect what this nation is supposed to be.
I think it's interesting that you bring up that, Lili, that you're looking from the demographics of another country. They look at the United States of America and think, fair trial, due process, right and wrong, letter of the law, and none of this story, Amber, tells us that the letter of the law was indeed followed. And again, I'm glad you brought up David Weiss. I'm not sure I understand why he had to be the special counsel of all people. There were plenty of other choices for a special counsel, and he's the one that cut that original deal, which apparently he didn't think he was even going to have to bring forward. He thought it was going to get buried until those whistleblowers that Jim Jordan's talking about came to testify.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently the original workings of the deal was that Hunter Biden wouldn't even have to plead guilty to anything, let alone, those tax charges. And apparently the only reason that he did end up having to plead guilty, which of course the deal never went through, is because of the IRS whistleblowers who revealed this two-tier justice system, and David Weiss was apparently terrified of the perception that he was being too kind to Hunter Biden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, politically, I have to ask, Lili, as we talk about the debate coming up tomorrow night, we want to hear about the issues, we want to hear what's going on, but I wonder how much is going to come up about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. How much are these candidates going to go after the Bidens versus going after each other tomorrow night on the debate stage? It's going to be interesting either way.
Well, it's going to be very interesting because they could go at each other. They could go against the Biden and Biden family and everything you're describing, or against the potentially missing President Trump.
Yeah.
So it's going to be I think it's a toss. I mean, it could go either way. If I was advising them, again, I'm a business gal, not a strategist for politics, but I would want to introduce myself and stand on my ground and show the American people where I could lead differently with the strength that we want and the values and the conservative, priorities that unify the party. But we'll see. It could go three ways.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, there's plenty of things to talk about. China, as has been pointed out in the Wall Street Journal op-ed this morning, they could talk about the failure of Bidenomics, but they could also say, here's my plan for inflation. Here is my plan for the border. Here is my plan to deal with schools and school choice, women and boys in sports. I mean, there's so many things out there that they could actually tackle. Amber, final word.
Yeah, exactly. I think we need a positive vision of what the future of the country looks like, and voters really want that. They're kind of tired of the tit for tat, and so anyone who can offer that alternative vision, I think, is going to do really, really well.
We're going to talk more about it this morning, obviously, as the countdown clock continues to count down to the debate.